When a police officer targets Naomi Ellison on a lonely highway, he underestimates who she really is. As tensions rise, one call shifts the balance of power, transforming a simple stop into a showdown that could bring down an entire system. Will Naomi emerge victorious? The evening sun bathed Texas Highway 183 in gold, where miles of cracked asphalt stretched endlessly through dry grasslands and faded roadside signs with letters long worn away. Colonel Naomi Ellison, 40, was driving her black Ford Explorer SUV home after attending a veteran recognition ceremony at Travis Base. On the passenger seat beside her lay her neatly folded military uniform inside a garment bag, medals, and a nameplate reading, "C. Naomi Ellison," catching glints of the amber twilight. But Naomi wasn't in uniform now. She wore a navy blue blazer, a crisp white button-down shirt, and charcoal gray slacks, an appearance calm, professional, and entirely unremarkable. The SUV glided smoothly along the pavement, its tires humming in steady rhythm like a silent marching tune. Naomi felt content with her day. She had inspired young soldiers and reflected on her time in the war zone. But the moment flashing red and blue lights lit up her rearview mirror, everything shifted. A patrol car was tailing her closely, police lights flickering aggressively as if she were a threat needing immediate stop. Naomi frowned. She hadn't been speeding. She hadn't changed lanes abruptly or broken any traffic laws. Everything had been by the book, yet the lights continued to flash. She sighed, signaled, and eased the SUV into the emergency shoulder. Once fully stopped, she remained still, both hands placed visibly on the steering wheel, exactly as she had taught hundreds of recruits about staying composed in high-pressure encounters. The sound of boots crunching gravel echoed sharply as a young police officer approached the driver's side. He was broad-shouldered, stiff in his gait, uniform taut and gleaming with a silver badge. His face was unreadable, expression cold. Naomi had met plenty of people in uniform, but something in his eyes was different. There was no professionalism, no seriousness, just a scrutinizing look, a chilling undercurrent of suspicion. License and registration. The officer said flatly, his name tag read, Kyle Renshaw. There was no greeting. Naomi slowly retrieved her wallet and handed over the documents. "Is there a problem, officer?" she asked, voice calm but steady. Renshaw glanced over the license, then looked at her again. His eyes searched as if waiting for her to make a wrong move. "Just a routine check," he said, though his tone betrayed something more, something intentional. A familiar tension stirred inside Naomi. It wasn't fear. It was instinct, the same instinct that had kept her alive countless times during operations in the Middle East. She knew this script: abuse authority, dismissive stares, and impose silence. But Kyle Renshaw had picked the wrong person. Naomi was not someone who backed down. She didn't know exactly what was coming, but one thing was certain: this confrontation was only beginning. Naomi kept both hands on the steering wheel, not out of fear, but because she knew restraint was the most powerful weapon in a senseless confrontation. Kyle Renshaw scrutinized every detail on her license as if interrogating a suspect. He tilted his head, eyes scanning her face, then swept a glance through the interior of the car. "You said you just left a military event?" Renshaw asked, his tone dripping with skepticism. Naomi nodded. "I'm Colonel Naomi Ellison. I just attended a veterans tribute ceremony at Travis Base. My uniform is in the garment bag right beside me." Renshaw let out a dry laugh, one that held no friendliness. "Colonel, huh?" He emphasized the word as if it were a joke. "Then I assume you've got a military ID?" Naomi slowly reached for her wallet, but as she flipped through its compartments, she froze. Her ID pouch wasn't there. A brief wave of disappointment passed through her, but she reined it in quickly. "I must have left it in my uniform. It's in the chest pocket right there." She pointed toward the garment bag. "Well, how convenient," Renshaw said, folding his arms and stepping back half a pace. "No ID, nothing to verify, and all I see is a woman traveling alone on a highway for no apparent reason." Naomi met his gaze. "I just explained my reason, officer, and I see suspicious behavior." He took a step back, hand grazing the edge of his holster, eyes flicking across her vehicle. "I'll need to search the vehicle." Naomi furrowed her brow. You don't have the authority to search my car without probable cause or a warrant. Renshaw shrugged, his expression openly dismissive. When I suspect something, I have cause. Without waiting for her response, he moved around to the passenger side and yanked the door open. Naomi clenched her hands tighter. A cold fury rose in her chest. Not fear, but indignation at the blatant abuse of authority happening right before her eyes, on the very soil she once risked her life to protect. Renshaw rummaged through the garment bag without care, crushing it as he dug through. The uniform was pulled out and disheveled, metals clinking to the car floor with a small, heartbreaking sound. Looks like you do have a rank, Renshaw sneered. But there's nothing proving you didn't steal it off someone. Naomi took a deep breath, forcing herself to stay still. Every move she made now could be twisted. She had faced gunfire in Kandahar, had led dozens of troops through dangerous missions. But the humiliation she now endured on her own homeland at the hands of a man wearing a police badge left her speechless. Renshaw looked up, locking eyes with her, no longer hiding his disdain. You know what? People like you are always the loudest about your rights. But in the end, you all bowed down just the same. Naomi didn't answer. She just looked at him. No flinch, no fear, only a quiet storm, waiting for the right moment to rise. And she knew that moment was near. Naomi sat still in the SUV, her eyes following Kyle Renshaw's back as he rummaged through the glove compartment. Her hands tightened around the steering wheel, not out of fear but restraint. She had commanded troops in Afghanistan, remained calm while bullets whizzed past her ears. But this blatant violation, here on American soil, stirred in her a cold fury rising from the depths. As Kyle flipped through her wallet like he was searching for proof to charge a suspect, Naomi silently reached into her blazer pocket and pulled out her phone. No wasted movement, no emotion on her face. She opened her contacts and tapped a name. General Tage Leclerc, JCS Pent. The call connected in under 3 rings. A deep, firm voice came through. Naomi, are you all right? I'm being unlawfully detained by a police officer named Kyle Renshaw on I-75 near Marietta, Georgia, she said, steady and deliberate. He has provided no valid reason, is currently searching my vehicle and personal belongings, despite me identifying myself as a U.S. Army colonel. A deadly silence on the other end. Then, hand him the phone. Now, don't hang up. Naomi turned her head, calmly extended the phone out the window. Someone wants to speak with you. Kyle raised an eyebrow, smirking. What? You called your lawyer? Worse, Naomi said, not blinking. He took the phone with lazy arrogance and pressed it to his ear. Renshaw speaking. Who? He didn't finish the sentence. A wave of frost swept over his face like a death wind. His expression shifted from smug to pale in seconds. He turned toward Naomi, and for the first time, looked at her, truly looked at her, not as a suspicious black woman, but as a storm trained to endure, to lead, and to strike back at the right time. Why, yes, sir. I understand. Immediately, Kyle stammered. He handed the phone back to Naomi as if it were a live explosive. I'm sorry, Colonel. I didn't know. Naomi didn't respond. She lifted the phone back to her ear. The suspension is effective immediately, General Leclerc's voice said. I've contacted the Wickliffe County Police Chief. They're on their way. You don't need to do anything else. Just wait. Naomi gave a small nod. Kyle stood frozen, sweat rolling down his temple. His entire life, he believed power meant making others fear him. But in that moment, he understood what real power was, and it had nothing to do with a gun or a shiny silver badge. Naomi leaned back in her seat. The wind outside continued to blow steadily, but the air had changed because the balance of power had just shifted toward justice. That afternoon, the last rays of sunlight stretched across the blacktop of I-75, the heat still lingering on the pavement, like an echo of what had happened earlier. Naomi Ellison was driving home after a tense meeting at the military base. Wind rustled through the roadside trees, but her heart hadn't lightened. The call to the Pentagon had done what it needed to. Kyle Renshaw had been suspended on the spot, but Naomi knew men like him didn't let go so easily. In the rear-view mirror, a pair of headlights appeared. Faint at first, then gradually closer. A silver Dodge Charger was tailing her at a steady distance. It didn't overtake. It didn't fall back. A slow, crawling suspicion climbed up Naomi's spine. Her instincts had never failed her. Not in combat, and not now. She didn't take the exit toward home like usual. Instead, Naomi veered off onto a service road that led to an abandoned industrial yard about 10 miles outside the city. The road was deserted. No cameras, no streetlights, just dust, wind, and the increasingly loud hum of an engine behind her. The Charger accelerated, closing in fast. Then, as if waiting for the perfect moment, it surged forward and cut her off, forcing her to the shoulder. The driver's side door flung open. Kyle Renshaw stepped out. Not in uniform, but with a Glock 19 clearly visible at his waist. "Out of the car, Naomi," he barked, eyes bloodshot and seething with rage. "You think a few phone calls end this?" Naomi stepped out, unhurried. She wasn't armed, but her eyes were steel. "You're committing a serious felony, Kyle," she said, enunciating every word. "And this time, no one's coming to save you." Kyle let out a bitter laugh, but it wasn't the laugh of someone in control. It was the sound of a man unraveling. "You ruined my name. I'm just taking back what's mine." Naomi studied him. "What you lost wasn't because of me. It was because of you." Then suddenly, from behind a rusted shipping container just a few yards away, a small drone zipped into the air, its recording light blinking to life. Naomi's eyes flicked upward. She'd stashed it in her trunk that morning, just in case. Kyle froze as the red light on the drone blinked steadily. "What the hell?" "Live feed," Naomi said coldly, streaming straight to Travis Base and the Department of Justice. "You should know, I never walk into a fight unarmed." Kyle's face drained of color. In that instant, all his fury gave way to panic. Naomi didn't need fist to fight. She crushed his hatred with preparation and precision. And this time, he wasn't just facing a U.S. Army colonel. He was facing justice, floating silently above them in the sky. Naomi stood in the middle of the deserted lot, her eyes locked on Kyle Renshaw. The drone hovered silently above, capturing every moment. Realizing he was being recorded, Kyle roared in fury and drew his Glock 19 from his waist. "That's enough," he shouted, hand trembling as he pointed the gun at Naomi. "You think you can humiliate me? I'll end this right now." Naomi didn't flinch. Her extensive military training told her that reckless moves like this came from desperation. She calmly stepped to the side, keeping a safe distance while tracking his every motion. "Kyle, stand down," she said evenly. "You're being recorded. Everything you do from this moment on will be used as evidence in court." But Kyle wasn't listening. He lunged forward, the gun still aimed at her. In a flash, Naomi moved, tilting her body to avoid the line of fire and knocking his hand off course with her left arm. Her right hand struck his wrist, sending the gun clattering to the ground. Before he could react, she followed with a swift kick to his knee, dropping him to the dirt. She seized his arm, locking him in place with practiced precision, pinning him face down. "You're under arrest," she said, her breath steady. "Everything you've done has been recorded. There's no way out." Siren wails echoed in the distance, flashing red and blue lights, painting the road in pulses of urgency. Naomi held her position, maintaining control until law enforcement arrived. When the officers pulled up, they found Naomi firmly restraining Kyle on the ground. One officer rushed over. "Colonel Ellison, are you all right?" Naomi nodded. "I'm fine. Thank you for getting here in time." She glanced up at the drone still floating overhead, then pulled a remote control from her pocket and powered it down. The confrontation was over, but the pursuit of justice was just beginning. The sirens continued to blare across the empty lot as Naomi kept Kyle Renshaw's arm pinned securely. The red and blue strobes reflected off the cracked asphalt, and the sound of car doors swinging open signaled that judgment was about to unfold. 3 police officers stepped out quickly. One of them, Officer George Tanner, approached with his hand already resting on his holstered weapon. "We got a report of an attempted assault. Colonel Ellison, is that the suspect?" Naomi nodded, then handed over her military credentials and the drone's video footage. He followed me, threatened me, ambushed me on an isolated road, and attempted to attack. I was forced to defend myself. Everything is recorded. Tanner signaled to the other two officers, who moved in with handcuffs. Kyle Renshaw, you are under arrest on multiple charges. Unlawful stalking, assaulting a senior military officer, attempted battery, abuse of authority, and endangering public safety. Kyle struggled, but he was out of strength. His face twisted with rage. His eyes darkened as he stared at Naomi, now the key witness. She met his gaze with calm stillness. Not a single word. As Kyle was shoved into the backseat of the patrol car, Naomi walked slowly over to Officer Tanner. I'll forward all the footage and data to the Military Special Task Force and the Office of the Federal Inspector General, she said. Tanner nodded, his expression grave. Thank you, Colonel. This will be handled with the seriousness it deserves. Naomi said nothing more. She simply turned back to her vehicle, recalled the drone, and activated its compact mode. As the last rays of sunset washed over the empty lot, the place returned to stillness, like nothing had happened at all. But Naomi knew better. This was only the beginning of a long legal reckoning. And this time, silence would be replaced by justice. Less than 24 hours after the arrest, the story of Naomi Ellison, a U.S. Army colonel attacked on the highway by a police officer, exploded across major news platforms. Drone footage, Naomi's testimony, and Kyle Renshaw's identity were all laid bare before the public. Outrage swept through social media. Hashtags like hashtag Justice for Naomi and hashtag End Abuse of Power dominated Twitter and news tickers. Calm as ever, Naomi proactively contacted the Department of Justice and the Office of the Inspector General. She requested a full investigation, not just into Renshaw's personal misconduct, but into his entire service record and any incidents previously buried. At a press conference held in Washington, Naomi stood tall in full military dress. Her voice rang with clarity and force. No one stands above the law, not even those who wear a badge. The quote headlined dozens of national outlets the next day. The incident triggered an internal review within the Virginia State Police. Investigators uncovered that Kyle Renshaw had been the subject of at least 7 complaints over the past 5 years, ranging from abuse of power to racially motivated misconduct, all of which had been buried by edited internal reports. The revelations ignited further public outrage, with growing demands that police leadership be held accountable. During a search of Renshaw's residence, carried out under a federal warrant, agents found a concealed filing cabinet in a shed behind the house. Inside were dozens of handwritten logs, license plate photos, and travel schedules of multiple black women in the area, including Naomi, spanning several months. The notebooks included detailed notes about times of departure, travel routines, and even addresses of family members. This evidence shifted the case dramatically, from a single abuse of authority to a possible organized stalking operation. Legal experts quickly weighed in, noting that the evidence could constitute federal charges for targeted stalking and hate-based criminal conspiracy. When asked about the discovery, Naomi responded with characteristic poise. He prepared like I was his only target. But in the end, he was the one being watched by the truth. The media dubbed the case the Predator Files, and the investigation quickly expanded statewide. For Naomi, it was clear a legal storm was coming, and this time, no one would be spared. The trial of Kyle Renshaw was scheduled at the U.S. District Court for Western Texas. The courtroom was packed with reporters, veterans, and black community members from across the country, all waiting to see if justice would truly be served. Naomi stepped into the courtroom in full military dress, her posture commanding, her gaze steady and unwavering. She didn't need to speak much. Her presence alone was a declaration. The evidence was laid out. Dashcam footage, drone video, surveillance files found in Renshaw's home, and testimonies from previous victims. Choked up voices described the fear of being watched, threatened, and targeted. Every account repeating the same name, Kyle Renshaw. When Naomi took the witness stand, her voice was clear, unshaken. I fought overseas to protect this country, but I never thought I'd have to fight for my life on American soil because of the color of my skin. The defense attempted to shift the narrative, claiming Renshaw was provoked, mentally unfit, or unaware of the gravity of his actions. But the jury wasn't swayed. The evidence was overwhelming, the pattern undeniable, and the motive, rooted in hatred, unmistakable. The federal judge delivered the verdict slowly, with firm authority. There is no place for abuse of power in a democracy. Mr. Kyle Renshaw didn't just betray the honor of law enforcement. He betrayed the trust of the entire community. The trial ended with a sentence of 15 years in federal prison on multiple serious charges: aggravated assault, hate-motivated stalking, abuse of authority under color of law, and obstruction of federal justice. Naomi didn't smile. She only nodded quietly as she exited the courtroom, like a soldier completing her mission, not for glory, but for the truth. Following the trial, Naomi's story quickly became the center of national discourse. Many citizens applauded the verdict, seeing it as a rare affirmation that justice can be served, even when the perpetrator wears a badge. They hailed Naomi as an honor-bound whistleblower, a symbol of courage and principle. Yet, criticism came just as swiftly. Detractors accused her of tarnishing law enforcement's image, of exaggerating racial tensions. Conservative media outlets framed her actions as excessive, questioning the reasonableness of her response during the night of the attack. Naomi didn't respond to backlash. She believed the truth carried its own weight. In a rare interview with NPR, she simply stated, "I didn't fight to be liked. I fought so others wouldn't have to live in fear." That statement was shared millions of times on social media, becoming a rallying cry for reform campaigns across the country. For Naomi, victory wasn't about applause. It was about planting a seed of change, however small, in the justice system she once swore to defend. As the evening sun dipped below the horizon over Travis Base, Colonel Naomi Ellison stepped out of her office, cap folded neatly in hand. No cameras, no courtroom, no more indictments to fight. Only her, and a conviction that had never wavered. The legal battle had ended, but Naomi knew that real change didn't begin with courtroom verdicts. It began with quiet actions taken every day by those who dare to stand up, even when they knew they had to stand alone. From across the country, thousands of letters poured into the base where she worked, from single mothers, veterans, law students, and public officials striving to reform the system. One handwritten note from a 12-year-old girl in Texas left her speechless. "I want to grow up strong like you, not to fight back, but to protect others with intelligence and resolve." Naomi kept that letter in her drawer as a reminder. At a seminar later held at the Wycliffe Military Academy, when asked what defines true strength, she didn't hesitate. "It's not muscle, it's not weapons, and it's certainly not a badge," she said. "True strength is when you have the power to break someone, but choose not to. You choose to let the law and the truth speak. You choose to act at the right time." The entire auditorium rose to their feet in applause, but Naomi quietly stepped off the stage, as she always did. To her, resolve didn't need an echo. It only needed to leave its mark, at the right moment and in the right way.